Yeah, and we continue to watch that leadership board as it continues to change there right behind us, looking at the results that have been completed so far. But we're still standing, though, at just above 51% of the voting districts that have been completed at a national level. And we're actually having a conversation here with Rekgotsofetse about the CSIR numbers and their modeling. Good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Their modeling is saying that the ANC will be pushed below the 50% plus one mark, and they are hovering at around 42%. That's what they're saying. It's going to be around 42%. And ever since I've been watching this leadership board, it has been hovering around 42%, even though the ANC has increased its number of votes so far. But 42.34%, what does this mean for the country?
It means a complete change in our logic about politics, but it also means that we've finally consolidated our democracy, assuming the results hold, meaning that you really don't experience democracy if only one person wins. You know what I mean? Are you really sure that it's a multi-party competitive democracy if one person always wins? If the numbers hold and the ANC falls down to 42%, then we're entering a new era at national government. This era of what a coalition government looks like. And it has multiple ramifications. How do you determine what the budget will look like when you can't just decide how the money is going to be allocated? How are you going to do any sort of negotiations around SOEs or plans, long-term plans with other parties when you've got one eye on thinking, well, I want to retain power in 2029, but I need to negotiate with people for an infrastructure plan that's 20 years in the making. So it's changing the nature of politics. I think the numbers will probably hold. The CSIR is generally correct when it comes to these types of predictions, but it doesn't model political behavior, right? It only models past voting patterns and forecasts what that would look like in the future. And what we're also looking at is like the metros that need to come in full force. And once they come in, they'll give us a clearer picture about exactly what's going on. I don't suspect it will move the dial dramatically for the big parties. I think the smaller parties are really looking to make huge inroads using metros in particular.
Let's quickly go to the Northern Cape. We're speaking about it a bit earlier on as well. Over 99% of the voting districts that have been completed, they're 99.59% so far. And the ANC also in the Northern Cape, as it stands currently, is below that 50% plus one at 49.23%.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it this morning that could the Northern Cape become the second province that the ANC loses, following, of course, the Western Cape?
Yeah, depending on how you view lose, right? So they could get underneath 50 and then formulate...
Well, below the majority,
Below the majority. So it could be that. I suspect they might just pull it over the line, but we'll see as the numbers come in. But it would be very, very interesting of seeing a province such as the Northern Cape, right? A much poorer province compared to the others, one of the rural bases of the ANC strategically over the last 20 years or so, but with declining support over the last few years. And the question then becomes, it makes sense for the ANC to lose Gauteng, KZN, and Western Cape, right? These urban hubs, huge amounts of industrialization, but they usually are very calm about more rural provinces. So we're talking about Northwest, Limpopo, and obviously Limpopo, they've got a firm majority there. But losing a province like Northern Cape starts spelling this question of maybe your rural base isn't with you anymore, especially considering the ANC put a lot of effort into securing their base, to going back into rural areas, and losing their votes in the Northern Cape will be a huge blow for them.
The Western Cape, quickly. Western Cape, of course, was one of those provinces that people were looking into to see whether Democratic Alliance will lose its majority. In the Western Cape, currently 65.65% of the voting districts that have been completed. And the Democratic Alliance still firmly in the majority, but just the difference there's 52.4%.
Yeah.
So it's not too far off.
I think
it's not too far off. Could we see a shake-up here?
So there's two things to consider when thinking about the Western Cape in particular, especially with regards to the Democratic Alliance. So the first one is looking at the performance of the Patriotic Alliance, right? So the Patriotic Alliance, next to MK, is probably the biggest winners from this election, right? They've come out of the blocks, first time contesting at a national level, and they're now, if the numbers still hold, the third largest party in the Western Cape as the numbers are right now, right? This is usurping the EFF and I hope that's still
the Patriotic
true now.
Alliance, currently at 9.23%,
exactly. Which is a massive jump for them. And the question then becomes, where are they getting their votes from? Well, we know that Gator McKenzie's really been pushing the line of kind of coloured nationalism, identity politics, the notion of foreigners don't belong here, they're taking our jobs. And he's started to sweep votes from like the Winelands region of the Western Cape. Now, the next question is about, does this hold for the PA in the city of Cape Town? That is really the DA's base. As the numbers start rolling in from there, it might secure the DA. But another question is something that everyone's been talking about for the last 6 months. Will the DA's stance on Israel-Palestine affect the Muslim community's votes and the pro-Palestine votes within the city of Cape Town as well? That hampers that. And it won't be millions of individuals, it's not the case. But even if it is a couple thousands of people, does that take them underneath the 50% mark? And then the DA's worst nightmare of having to deal with a coalition in their own province is something that they're not looking forward to. But we'll see as Cape Town comes in.
But at least they have some experience when it comes to coalition politics, specifically in the Western Cape. I want us to touch on the EFF, but we're going to have that conversation a bit later on.